Today, we will be creating a perfect tactic. Last year, I had a few videos where I selected a team and then I created a perfect tactic for that team. Today, those videos are back and today's video is going to be a little special. For today's video, we have traveled back in time. We are in 2023, but the database that we are going to be using for today's video is the 98-99 database. So I have selected Arsenal. I told you, today's video is going to be a little special. I have selected Arsenal, and as you can see, we have David Seaman in goal. We have Steve Bold, Jules Grimandi, Martin Keown, Winterburn, Patrick Vieira. I mean, we are going to see some of these attributes as the video goes on. We're going to see some of these player profiles. I have also signed a very special player, Ronaldinho, for about 2 million, absolute bargain. And we also have Dennis Bergkamp. So what we are going to do is create a perfect tactic for this team. As you can see, the season's already completed. We are in June. We are on top of the league, so the tactic is very good. And we have also tested it slightly at a different club who I thought this tactic could actually be perfect for. So one way how I start creating a perfect tactic is you can actually sort it out by the assistant's opinion on who is the best player. So you could just simply select the ability button or the filter here, and it's going to sort your squad out by who the assistant thinks is the best at the top. We've got Emmanuel Petit, a central midfielder. We have Nicholas Anelka, Mark Overmars, and Dennis Bergkamp, also Patrick Vieira. But I am a gooner. I'm kind of aware of who the better players are in this squad. But there's two players in particular that I want to get the best out of. Nicholas Anelka, who's going to be a fantastic goal scorer, a pacey hit man. He's very fast, 20 off the ball movement, 15 anticipation and 15 finishing. Now, a lot of these attributes, they are going to look a bit bumped up. It's not just Arsenal, it's literally everybody in this database. So if we go to Leeds, for an example, and have a look at Robbie Keane, ex-Spurs player, you can see dribbling 18, finishing 18, technique 15, acceleration 17, and pace 18. I mean, the guy is an absolute monster. He would be an absolute monster on the original database, but the only thing is, in this database, there are going to be some very, very, very talented players. So back to the squad and back to the purpose of this video. As I said, we're going to focus on getting the best out of Nicholas Anelka, but also Dennis Bergkamp. So we have Nicholas Anelka, who can be a very, very good goal scorer, but then we also have a creator, someone that could possibly play alongside him. He's, 20 flair, 19 passing, 19 vision. This guy is going to be a fantastic player. And I guess now you can see the reason why I also wanted to test this in a normal database with some, I would say, normal attributes. Now, before we look at the results very briefly and how this tactic done, in the comment section below, let me know, should I use this database for another video? If so, which team would you want me to be? Because I know some of you are dying to see some of these player attributes. Also, shout out to Mad Scientist, the creator of this database. The links will be in the description below, of course, but don't forget, in the comment section, leave those comments, spam me with those comments. Which team should I be next? I mean, it could be Manchester United. Maybe you guys want to see me with David Beckham, create a tactic with David Beckham and Giggs. Maybe it's a Liverpool tactic with Robbie Fowler and Michael Owen. It could be in Europe, Juve. It could be Madrid. It could be Barcelona. It doesn't matter. Let me know. And then we can also see some players' profiles for some nostalgia. Results in the Premier League. We won that. We played 38. We won 30, meaning we didn't win 8 of those games. And we got a points tally of 95. In the Champions League, disappointingly, we got knocked out. Though I did rotate my side. And if you try and rotate your team on this database, I mean, you go from Anelka, someone very quality, to someone that's not very quality real quick. But we did win the UEFA Cup, so we did make up, and we won a European competition, get stuck in RDF, but we did lose the FA Cup in the final. And you can see the match momentum. You could say that we deserve to win it, especially looking at the half chances, 6 half chances, 1 clear-cut chances. We just couldn't finish our dinner. And then Zola, yes, the legend, Gianfranco Zola, absolutely buried us. But we're just going to look at the Premier League stats fairly quickly. Nicolas Anelka, he got an average rating of 8.01. So focusing on our best player, Nicolas Anelka has clearly worked here. He scored 41 goals, Owen scoring 42. Mark Overmars with second, or the most assists, sorry. So we scored the most goals, we had the most shots for, the fewest shots against, and the best defense record in the league. So the mid block has worked very well. And looking at the top goal scorer, Nicolas Anelka second, Dennis Bergkamp with 29 goals in 31 starts, 11 assists there as well. Very good. Mark Overmars with 19 goals. Anelka with the most shots for, but we're not necessarily surprised at that. Buffon. Man United signed Buffon. David Seaman. Wow, David Seaman with the most clean sheets, and the fewest considered as Buffon, which is a rip-off because he's only played 16 games, so he came in halfway during the season. Looking at the data hub, everything was A-OK. You can see with the defensive efficiency, quiet defense, and impenetrable defense as well. The goalkeeping similar, impenetrable defense and quiet goalkeeping. But looking at the attacking efficiency, aggressive and clinical shooting, the crossing, lots of crosses, but we were accurate. The goal output, we had a high non-penalty expected goals with strong defending, so we were very good data wise as well. Personally, I think it would be wrong if I didn't show you some clips. I mean, we've got to see how Anelka, Bergkamp and Lundberg are looking on the match engine. So here is us beating Manchester United at Old Trafford. I mean, this is obviously my best result, beating Manchester United, because if you see their favourites and odds to win the league is absolutely insane. No one even comes close, even though we were actually second, predicted to finish second. We won the game in the 92nd minute. Kind of, they did score a consolation. They did get man sent off, but let's be honest, we were already winning by that point. Falgiani whips in the ball. Tony Adams loses the original header, scores. We are using 2D for more nostalgia. Vieira, Tony Adams, Grimandi, Petit, and Nelka gets into the box. He runs at his defender. Petit smashes it 1-0. Then for the second goal, actually, I remember this goal perfectly. It came from a break. Let's go all the way back. Hel Salgado, they also bought Michel Salgado from Madrid. So here's us winning the ball. Vieira intercepting a pass. He drives forward, plays in Bergkamp. Bergkamp gets the ball into the box, plays it back. Lundberg smashes it 2-0. But here is Manchester United's goal. They actually scored an own goal. Beckham, the ball hits off Tony Adams and it goes in. And then for our third goal, you can see Petit on the ball. Lundberg, Anelka, again, beautiful. And then again, they scored in the 94th minute with Walter Samuel. So I've discovered who personally are going to be my two best players, Dennis Bergkamp and Nicolas Anelka, and we're going to build around them. Now, Bergkamp can play as an attacking midfielder. He can also play as a striker. I remember Dennis Bergkamp being a striker at Arsenal. So I'm actually looking to play with two up top. So I have to surround these two quality guys with players that can feed them the ball, but also players that can win the ball back, because we're really going to focus on getting the best out of these two players, and we're just going to build a team around those two. So to start off, I'm going to go to my tactics. I'm going to create my own style, and then I'm going to look for a tactic that's using two strikers. I can go for a 5-3-2, a 5-2-1-2, a 4-4-2, which is what I'm personally looking at, because I'm also remembering Frederick Lundberg and Mark Overmars on each flank. And we can also go for the 4-2-2-2-2. I had to make sure I got that correctly. Or I could just say the 4-2-4. But we are going to go with the 4-4-2. And voila, we have an advanced forward and a deep line forward up top already. So we're going to go to Nicolas Anelka as the advanced forward. He's going to be the main goal scorer. We could use a poacher. A poacher is someone that's not going to get heavily involved in the build-up play, but I feel we'll be wasting that, as Nicolas Anelka has 14 passing, he has 13 vision, he's got good technique, good first touch. I mean, he could also play a bit of football, so it would be wasteful if I just use him as a poacher. I'm going to use him as advanced forward, someone that can also run into the channels. When he gets into the channels, he can send crosses for his strike partner, and yeah, good stuff. And then his strike partner, now I actually have, there's 4 finished versions of this tactic. The original of this tactic, now I originally went with Trequartista. Again, just looking for the best role for the player, the absolute best role. I mean, it's actually saying a deep line forward, which is what we ended up with. But we started with a Trequartista. My thinking is having a goal scorer and a creator, someone that can link the midfield and attack, and then also someone that can finish off our chances. Now, a deep line forward does exactly that. Now, there's one reason why I switched from a Trequartista trequartista to a deep lying forward. Simply it's because when we was building out from the back, the trequartista was just up top, and then we had to try and build with 2 central midfielders, which was fairly difficult against teams that were playing with 3 midfielders. And in this database, many teams were playing a diamond, a 4 in midfield. So there was a heavy overload, defensive overload for the AI. So I then quickly changed this to a deep line forward on an attack, because I still need someone that's going to support Nicolas Anelka. Anelka cannot score every single goal by himself. So I'm still thinking of a secondary goal scorer. You could say that, a secondary goal scorer. We have Nicolas Anelka, the main one, Dennis Bergkamp as our secondary goal scorer, but he's also going to be our main creator. What I've just figured out here as well, I can put reports and I can just filter out the squad from here, which is all good, so we don't actually have to leave the screen very often. So now we've got our 2 strikers. I'm actually going to go all the way back and look for the goalkeeper now. So in goal, we're going to use David Seaman. Looking at David Seaman's profile, it says that he's a sweeper keeper, but looking at his rushing out is on 13. His first touch is on 5, so he's not necessarily great coming off his line, but he's also not necessarily great playing with the ball at his feet. So I'm actually just going to go, his vision's also 8 as well. So I'm actually going to go with just the standard goalkeeper. Though the assistant manager is telling me, look, the sweeper keeper is probably the best role for him, I'm going to ignore that and go for the goalkeeper. As you can see here as well, he's hitting most of these attributes here. We've got some great areas like the first touch, the vision, but also the acceleration. The acceleration is going to be very important with him sweeping coming off his line. So I'd rather not risk it and just go for a standard goalkeeper. Now we can go for the fullbacks. Our left back options at the start was Nigel Winterburn and Nelson Rivas, and at right back we have Lee Dixon, Gilles Grimandi, and again Nelson Rivas. But if I look at Lee Dixon, who is the best right back, you can see his acceleration is on 11 and his pace is on 9, dribbling's on 7, so we're not going to get much explosiveness down on the right hand side from Lee Dixon. And then at the start we also had Nigel Winterburn, someone else, or the best left back in this team, and again similar story, low acceleration, low pace and low dribbling, not enough explosiveness. So what I did at the very start is actually just look for the cheapest fullback that I could find that could also just fit into this team without a problem, which we found Daniel Fagiani. He's fairly fast, he can dribble, average dribbling, average crossing, he can take free kicks, he's got long shots, he can tackle. This guy will be a very decent left back for us. So I'm just going to fill in the left back roles or the positions. Fagiani at left back, and then we have Lee Dixon at right back. Now it's time to find the best roles, and at the moment I actually feel the fullback on support are going to be the best roles for this team, because now I'm still thinking of these wingers creating for the striker. So I'm going to be thinking of this winger creating for the striker, this winger also creating for both of the strikers. The fullbacks actually will have less responsibility when it comes to creativity, so they're just going to be involved in the build up and also making us very solid off the ball. One way we can do that, being key in build up and being solid off the ball, is not allowing him to get further forward far too often. So a fullback on support is actually a very good role. He's just going to knock the ball short. He's still going to look from crosses and through passes from time to time, but generally he's just going to play it safe and he's not going to look to get further forward. As you can see with his hard-coded instructions, nothing is there, is a blank canvas. Whereas if we use a wing back on support, then very quickly you will see that he likes to get further forward and runs wide with the ball. But also you can tell by the role, this description of the role, he likes to get further forward, he's an aggressive crosser, and he likes to battle in midfield as well. But we don't necessarily want to do that. We are going to use a fullback on support, but I'm also keeping the era in mind as well. So 98, 99, this is kind of the era for the 4-4-2s, the 4-4-2 diamonds and that sort of stuff. Now, looking at the back, how are we going to supply the midfield from the back? Also the striker as well. Sometimes that option for the counter attack can be on, so we are going to be using a ball playing defender. If I use 2 central defenders here, I feel things are going to be too safe and we might not necessarily struggle, but we're not going to force that pass and getting further forward. Everything could just be very easy, passing it sideways, and the AI can then get in a defensive shape fairly quickly. So we are going to be using a ball playing defender. Now the issue here is that we don't necessarily have a very good defensive or a ball playing defender. Tony Adams here is the best centre back, and as you can see, he's not very good on the ball, and he's very slow as well. The next best centre back, Martin Keown, again not very good on the ball, and then we have Steve Bold, again not very good on the ball, but we do have a defender that is fairly decent on the ball, and he goes by the name of Gilles Grimandi. So regardless of him only being 2 stars, as you can see, he started 26 games. He was very key because he is the only player that can play as a ball playing defender, and his defensive partner, of course, we're just going to go for the best defender, Tony Adams. What's the best role for Tony Adams? A central defender on stopper or a no-nonsense defender on stopper? I actually went for a role that I haven't, or I rarely use, which is a no-nonsense. So a no-nonsense defender on stopper. The reason why we're not using defend or cover is because actually these 2 duties do require some pace. They will have to track back, whereas a stopper may not be required to track back because he's trying to stop play, so he's going to be stepping forward rather than trying to cover. So it's actually, again, very important that Tony Adams here is on a stopper duty. Now the midfield for me is where things start to get a little bit juicy. So in midfield, I'm going to be looking for my best midfielders, Emmanuel Petit and Patrick Vieira. Now looking at Patrick Vieira's profile, he can take long shots, he's got very good tackling, work rate, teamwork, vision, surprisingly as well, very high determination. I mean, he's a very good central midfielder, an absolute beast. But we also have Emmanuel Petit, someone that can tackle, pass, mark, shoot from range as well. He's got decent off the ball, decent anticipation. Now, many of us will say Patrick Vieira is a box-to-box midfielder, but looking at these Football Manager attributes, actually, I feel Emmanuel Petit will be the perfect box-to-box midfielder, linking up play, getting further forward, getting back. If we attack, he's just going to hang around the edge of the box. When we defend, he's also going to track back, something that Emmanuel Petit can do really well. So we are going to be using Emmanuel Petit on box-to-box midfield, and now it's trying to find a perfect balance in midfield. We've got someone getting further forward, supplying the 2 strikers as well. Maybe now we're looking for someone that's just going to operate in the deeper areas and doesn't necessarily have to get further forward, because in support we will have both wingers and we will also have both fullbacks supporting play and supporting the 2 strikers. So in midfield, actually, to provide some balance, we're just going to have someone holding their position in midfield. So we're going to get Patrick Vieira. Whoa. And we can use a central midfielder on defend. We've got a few options, a deep line midfielder on defend as well, or a ball winning midfielder on defend. If I give it to the ball winning midfielder, actually he's just going to win the ball and look for someone more creative to then get the ball further forward. But even though I said Vieira is just going to concentrate holding his shape, he can also still provide us with those long balls to the striker, or the counter-attacking balls to the striker. So already quickly, I'm just cancelling out a ball-winning midfielder on defend. I can still use that maybe against the bigger teams, but generally I'm just going to cancel that out, and now I'm left with 2 options, central midfielder on defend or a deep line midfielder on defend. I've gone for a deep line midfielder, even though it says playmaker. I've gone for a playmaker because someone that can drop deep, collect the ball from the defenders if we're struggling to build out from the back. So there is my midfield pairing. On the left hand side, I'm going to go for Mark Overmars because he is our left winger. At the start, he didn't have this accomplished role here. It was actually just blank. I had to retrain him throughout the season. Now looking at Overmars, he likes to run down the flank with his left foot, well, with the ball down the left, and he likes the ball play to his feet. Very interesting. Now this makes sense because at the start I did use a winger on attack, someone that's just going to supply the 2 strikers, get further forward, beat his man, put the ball into the box. The 2 strikers then have their creator. But the issue was he likes the ball played to his feet. Often he just didn't like getting further forward. So if we had the ball, the winger on attack often got further forward, and he found it hard to receive the ball. Now this is where a wide midfielder on attack is very good. Now I've also done something that kind of goes against his trait. He likes to run with the ball down the left. So typically you would run wide with the ball, but I've actually gone cut inside and dribble more because now I want the ball to Anelka. I really want the ball closer to Anelka rather than further away, if that makes any sense. Now, watching it in the match engine, a lot of the times Overmars will just beat his man on the outside, and we will struggle because we'll often put the ball into the box, but Anelka's not necessarily big and strong. Whereas if Overmars ran towards Anelka or ran towards the goal, then he can play through balls into Anelka, or he can drive towards the touchline and play a cutback pass into Anelka. A wing back on attack, a wide midfielder, sorry, on attack suited this tactic perfectly. Also, he's not as aggressive as a winger when he looks to get further forward, which also means there's not necessarily a big disconnect between the fullback and the wide midfielder. Then on the right hand side, we did just leave the winger on support, someone that's just gonna provide some width on the right hand side, but also sending some crosses from a deeper area. But we don't necessarily need that person running closer towards the strikers, because we do have Dennis Bergkamp on this side of the pitch dropping deeper and linking up play. So we will still have someone fairly close to Anelka on the right hand side of the pitch, which would be Bergkamp, and then on the left hand side we've got Petit supporting, and then we've also got Overmars being fairly aggressive, getting towards Nicolas Anelka. And voila, that there is the perfect player roles for this team. As I said originally, we had something different. He was a winger on attack, a trequartista on top here as well. So it did find a couple tweaks for me to find this perfect solution. So now we can move over to the team instructions. Now what I've actually done is just loaded up the actual completed version just so I can explain some of these team instructions fairly easily. So the mentality, I've actually kept it unbalanced. Now you do have the option to up this. You can go to positive, which works better when you're playing the likes of, well, good teams. When I was Arsenal beating Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea at home as well, Liverpool at home, I used the positive mentality rather than the balance. I felt it just worked better. Being a little bit more aggressive against those teams works better, whereas balance, you're actually keeping an eye out on the opponent's counter-attacks, so forth and so forth. So the opposition, it makes sense. The opposition will be, they're going to be set up more cautiously, so it's only right for you at times to set up more cautiously as well. Attack and width, fairly wide. Now, I did mention a little earlier about the build-up patterns. I felt that one, we had not enough players in central areas, which is why I switched Dennis Bergkamp to a deep lying forward on an attack. Now, if you notice that and there's still a disconnect, you can switch Bergkamp to support, but also we look for the middle too often, whereas if we looked on the outside, we can create better combinations on the outside. So if we're building out from the back, let's say Grimandi or Tony Adams has the ball, even David Seaman, if we look for the fullback, then the fullback has an option ahead of him, but also what you would notice that Petit shifts over, on the right hand side Vieira shifts over, and we create some nice combinations. But without this, what was happening, sometimes we will get the ball to Grimandi or even Fagiani plays it to Petit, and then Petit will quickly get closed down and he has little options. Overmars wasn't really coming into support, same on the right hand side as well. Lundberg wouldn't come into support, whereas if we built out on a wide in the wider areas, then Petit will come out to support and Vieira will come out to support. Now if we was using a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-1-1, then we could possibly just keep it in the middle, because then we will still have the attacking midfielder and he could drop back to help us when we are building up. But the issue here was that immediately we only had 2 players. Again, the opposition at times had 4 or 3 players in midfield. So that's the reason for the attacking width on fairly wide. We are using shorter passing to gain better control in games. Again, at Inter Milan though, the Finnish version for the normal database, it looks a little bit more like this, passing directness on standard and then slightly higher. This works better. I found this out at Inter Milan, but on this database and for Arsenal, passing directness on shorter and tempo on standard worked very, very well. So make sure you test it out if you are planning to use this tactic. Now, we also had pass into space at the start. This got less effective as the season got towards the busy end, but if you are just starting out, then I would use pass into space, and then you have the option, if you notice it being less effective, to then remove it. In transition, when the possession has been lost, we know we are not going to counter press or regroup, because the best defensive solution in this formation for me was the midfield. block. So we're not going to counter press and immediately get players out of position because that could leave gaps in this team. So we're just leaving it and also not using regroup because at times that put on way too much pressure, especially if the opponents were using the opposition fairly attacking. Our wingers, they'll be under a lot of pressure. So I felt just leaving it was the best option. When possession has been won, we are going to be using our lightning speed for the counter attacks. Goalkeeper in possession, just roll it out to the centre backs, and yeah, but that changes and you will get some different tactics. You will see some of the tactics are versus 2 strikers where the build up is a bit different. Of course, building up with 2 centre backs versus 2 strikers, you do not have that advantage. You're not necessarily going to have that advantage, so why not just get the ball into those wider areas to the fullbacks who are less likely to be marked. And when you're up against a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, a high pressing 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. Now I found this out when doing a test at Inter Milan, coming against AC Milan, against Napoli. It was better to actually distribute the ball to the flanks, because if I used the centre backs, sometimes they had the striker and the attacking midfielder ready to press, and I couldn't use the fullbacks because they already had their attacking wingers there. So against a 4-2-3-1, especially, distributing the flanks was the best option. Lastly, out of possession, we are using a mid block and a standard defensive line. The trigger press is set to standard. You have the option to then move this and change this to more often, but actually I was in love with the nostalgia, the era of this. It was less intensive as football is now, so less counter-attacking and gegen pressing and high pressing. There was less of that back then, so I kind of fell in love with that, and you kind of have fun using this database, just remembering that. But you do have the option, again, I did test this at Inter, you have the option to use a more often trigger press, though it's not necessarily necessary. Now, as said, this will come with different versions. You can see here the original 4-4-2. Then I have the Arsenal version. So if you see here, it will be the version that I've just ran through. But the default version, I would say, would just be the RDF's 98 4-4-2, which was tested at Inter Milan on the normal database. And then we have some different options as well. As I explained, when you're up against 2 strikers, a 4-4-2, a 4-4-2 diamond, then I would use this where now you are focusing play down the flanks. Again, this is based on Inter Milan. If I was Arsenal, I would knock this down to shorter and standard, and that's mainly the main differences. Get the ball into the flanks, but also distributing it in a different area. And then also, if I load up my 4-3-3, it's a high pressing, so HP means high pressing. A high pressing 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, that is basically against the good teams, the Napolis, the Milans. You can see the cautious mentality now, and yeah, in transition, we are distributing the ball to the flanks. And quickly as well, Inter Milan, as I felt that this tactic is actually also perfectly suited. I was thinking, who could this tactic actually suit in real life right now? And I just thought instantly Inter Milan. I mean, Martinez up top. If we change this, it will be Martinez up top with Lukaku. Lukaku, an absolute beast on this game. But with this test, we've only done 22 games so far. We've won 16, drawing 4, 2 of them at home, 2 of them away. And away from home, we lost 2 to Napoli and Salernitana, which was very, very surprising. I did rotate a little, but still, the loss was just absolutely baffling. So it is currently working at Inter Milan. We're still in the Champions League as well. It's a perfect tactic for Inter Milan. We've scored this most goals. We've had the most shots. Not necessarily defending similar to how we were at Arsenal, but I was just finding my feet at Inter Milan as well. Unfortunately, and as much as I love this video, it's come to an end. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope this video has helped you out massively in creating your perfect tactic for your team. But don't forget, also in the comments, tell me which team you would like. If you want, should I use this database for another video, basically. Don't forget as well, if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed, like this video, leave a comment in the comment section. Shout out to my Patreons, and one love.